with us.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Caterina. I cooperate with DIFRO for what concerns the project design and management. I'm going to talk today about, well, the session will be divided into three parts. The first part, I'm going to talk about the Erasmus Plus program that probably you already know. It's a very large, broad program focused on education, training, youth and sport. So I'm going to give you a couple of opportunities for small organizations and informal groups. I assume that you are young people that are willing to start some action in legal aid issues for migrants. So I selected among the very broad, large program of Erasmus Plus, a couple of opportunities that are very easy to apply. It can be a starting point for also future larger cooperation. The second part will be focused on the main elements of the project design. Of course, project design is a very broad issue, so we are going to quickly see together what are the basic elements that you have to take in mind, that you have to design for when you are applying for a project. And after the break, we will have a guest, Carmen Dupont, that probably you already met before. She's the president of a small grassroots foundation. It's a new generation of foundation based on the active participation of activists. So she will give you also some insights about this foundation. So the Erasmus Plus program, as you know, follows the agenda, the European agenda. We are now in the agenda 21-27. Which is the agenda based on the European budget. The guidelines that I'm going to open now, as you can see, is a very large document. It's a 441 pages, so it's really a book. The Erasmus Plus program is based on the three main actions, and each action has several call for proposals on different fields. Of course, you know, the mobility for students, there are youth exchanges, voluntary service, cooperation among universities, so it's very, very, very large. The Erasmus Plus program for these 7 years has 4 main priorities, which are inclusion and diversity, which is probably the most interesting for what we are talking about. We're talking about like rise of migrants and legal aid to migrants, etc. Digital transformation, that is a kind of mantra of this agenda of the European Union. So it's a very high priority. Environment and fight against climate change, participation in democratic life, common values and civic engagement. As you can see, a project can fall in more than one priority. For example, our project, the year project, falls in inclusion and diversity, but also in participation in democratic life and especially civic engagement. So I selected 2 call for proposals which are suitable for small projects. The first one is small scale cooperation project partnerships, which is the program that is currently financing the year project, and the youth participation activities. So talking about the small scale cooperation project, it's quite interesting because one of the objectives is really facilitate the access to the European projects to newcomers organizations. We are talking about organization at the moment. The other program will cover also informal groups, but for this kind of action, you must be a recognized organization. But the priorities for this action is facilitate the access to the program to newcomers. So it's very suitable for small organization that never had project before. So it's like a starting point that you can use also for future exchanges and future Erasmus Plus projects. As you can see, one of the objectives is also the inclusion of target groups with fewer opportunities. So when we are talking about including migrants or second generations young people, it's really fitting with the aim of this action. And then support the active European citizenship, which is also one of the objectives of our project try to raise the awareness of young people, student activists on why it's important to be active and to be in solidarity with migrants and with people with less support. These are some features of the small-scale cooperation partnership. There are different fields. There is school education, adult education, vocational education and training, youth and sport. What concerns us is the field of youth. Okay, but there are also other fields where you can apply for this kind of project. The partnership, being a transnational project, must be at least composed by 2 organizations from 2 different EU member states. This is the minimum. You can go from 2 up to whatever you want, taking into account what is the limit of the financial allocation, which is there are 2 kinds of projects. There are like small projects and bit larger projects. So you can apply for 30,000 euro or 60,000 euro. It's based on lump sum. What does it mean? That you don't have to submit a proper budget. You need to indicate what is the financial need of your project, and in the application specify how you are going to spend this money. But you don't need to present a budget, which is quite an advantage, because preparing a budget is not always easy. So it's really a simplified way of applying. The deadlines, 22nd of March, 4th of October. So there are 2 deadlines every year. It's important to check the deadlines of the Erasmus Plus program every year, because the deadlines can change. The deadlines can change every year, but also the specific priorities of each action. While the general priorities and objective of the program remain the same, the specific priorities of each action can change according with what happened in Europe. So it's important to check every year the guide, because every year is republished. Concerning the payments, how does it work? Usually, the European Commission gives you 70% as an advance before to start the project, so that you can start the project. And the 30% after the submission of the final report. So it means that you need to have a small capacity of advancing money, even though it's not so much considering this amount. The second opportunity is the youth participation activities. This is quite interesting, because you can apply also as an informal group. First, and the second point is that you can also submit an application for local or national activities. So it's not compulsory to have a partner in another country, another European country. So, for example, if you want to develop a local program, the local project like legal aid for migrants in your university, or your association as an activist or a student, this is quite suitable, because you can also do it only at local level without having partners abroad. The objectives of this action are quite similar to the other one, like to provide opportunities to participate in the civic society, which means active citizenship, civil engagement, to raise awareness about European common values, but especially on fundamental rights, which is quite interesting point for us. Develop young people digital competencies and media literacy. This is what I was telling you before, that the digital shift, the digital transformation is one of the main priority of this agenda. So it's quite smart to think about that when you design a project. If you have like also some digital elements in your project, can be an advantage at the stage of evaluation, project evaluation. Bring together young people and decision makers. This means if you have an advocacy activity that you want to finance, which is linked also with migrants' rights, etc., you can also use this action. Okay, this I already told you that you can apply a local, national, transnational, international participation. This project, the two call for proposal includes also partners in the third country, which are listed in the guidelines. There are a list of countries which are eligible out of the European Union. So you can also imagine projects that includes partners which are not in the European Union, but they are in the list of the eligible country that you can find in the guideline. The financial scheme is based on flat rates. In this case, you have to submit a budget, but it's a simplified budget, which is based on fixed cost. For example, for flights, it's a fixed rate like 200 to 250 euros, for example, board and logic 100 euro per day. So you have to fill a budget, but with some rules that you have to follow. Maximum 60,000 euro, and again, there are two deadlines per year, and the payments is the same, 70% in advance and the 50% after the submission of final report. So these are the two call for proposal that I selected that can fit in a potential project on legal aid for migrants. Of course, you can use this call also for other activities, but I selected those ones because as they're more accessible if you have a small organization, or if you have an informal group, a grassroots group that want to apply, also from the activist point of view, are the most suitable in the full program. So the second part is about how to design a project. Of course, it's a very long, it could take hours to talk about that. So I try to focus on some basic elements of the project design. It's what are the points that you cannot miss it in one project. Of course, the application form are all different, so they can ask you specification according to the typology of the project that you are designing. But there are some elements that are always there, that every application asks you when you apply. The first one, of course, is define the objectives of your project. And it's very important for this first step to check that the objectives are in line with the objectives of the call for proposal and with the priorities of the program, in this case, the Erasmus Plus program. You can always need to make a kind of negotiation between what are your objectives and what the guidelines required for being successful in the application of your project. Usually, there are always the criteria that are set up in the guidelines. So you can check first what are the evaluation criteria and try to design your project according with the objectives of the organization of your action and the objectives of the call for proposals. It's a kind of negotiation process that you always have to bear in mind. The second point, especially for European projects, is setting up the partnership. So if you are going to design a transnational project, you need to find partners. You might have already some contacts abroad. In this case, you write a concept note and you send this concept note to the potential partner asking for its participation. And then after that, it starts like the common preparation of the project. So there are like conversation about the activities, about the details, so that the project will include the inputs of all the partners. There are also some platforms available for searching partner, like for example, the Salto Network. Salto Network is it's a website of the European Commission that helps you in designing the project. There are some tips and some suggestions on how to develop projects, but there is a quite large database of organizations that are searching for partner and that you might contact if you are searching for partner as well. The third point is to identify clearly what are the beneficiaries of the project and to describe their needs. Now, the beneficiaries can be direct or indirect. For example, in the case of our project, the direct beneficiaries are you that are taking part to the international training, to the mobility, are students, activists that are already engaged or willing to engage in the legal aid for migrants and protection of migrant rights. But the indirect beneficiary of the project are migrants themselves, because the result of our project, we hope, that will generate an improvement of the action in protection of rights of migrants, in improving the quality of legal aid and the number of projects that are taking care of that. And describing the needs. So why you are doing this project for this specific target group, what they need. For example, what we identified as a need for the year project was that there are some groups in the university, the legal clinic, that have developed quite a large experience on this field of protection of migrant rights, but there are other groups and other activists which are more informal that maybe have less experience, and they can benefit from this transfer of competencies and skills. This is just to give you an example on how to define the needs of the target groups. In this case, was try to use the competencies of legal clinics to raise the quality and the competencies of legal aid projects that maybe are more informal, maybe are just starting now, have less experience, etc., etc. Then you have to list the outputs and the outcomes and results. What is the differences between these three concepts? The outputs are concrete results of the project. For example, if you produce a publication, or if you build a website, if you print some deliverables, usually are deliverables, something that you can really touch. These are the outputs. Then when we go to outcomes and results, the difference is quite tiny between outcomes and results. Outcomes are the result of one action. So if you have one activity, can have an outcome. The results are the achievement of the project. So usually these are always there. These three words are always there. They always, all at the application ask for defining these three words. So it's very important to have in mind clearly the difference of these three different concepts. Another important issue talking about projects is the monitoring and evaluation. The monitoring is how do you monitor the progress of your project? So how do you ensure that the project is following, for example, the chronogram that you planned, that the activities are going to take place in the right way, they are producing the expected result. So you have to design a strategy for that. Usually this strategy is based on the methodology of the cooperation among the partners. There is a partner that can be in charge of looking after the chronogram. Another partner can be in charge of looking after the outputs, if the outputs are produced in the right way. Usually all these tasks are covered by the coordinator, but it depends on how depends on the size of the project first, because when the projects are large and big, usually these tasks are divided among the partners, because otherwise the coordinator is overloaded by the project management. And then you need to show how you evaluate the results of your project. And in this field, the two keywords are qualitative and quantitative indicators. What is an indicator? Indicators, for example, quantitative indicators is, for example, how many people we have involved in the international online training that we are doing? 150. This is a quantitative indicators. Qualitative indicators in how many of them are satisfied by this course. And of course, there are different means of verification. For example, for a course, for the first indicator, you can count the people that took part. If the training is in presence, you have like registration of the participants. If it's online, in this case, we have the register of Zoom. This is the means of verification of that indicator. If it's qualitative, of course, you have to have other tools, like, for example, evaluation questionnaire, interview, reports of participants when they take part to an activity. So this is the means of verification. All these elements, sometimes when the projects are big and large, are schematized in what is called the logical framework. The logical framework is a kind of sheet that put together all these elements that I'm listing to you in a logic way. It's a kind of picture of the project. So the evaluator, when they come to your project, before to read everything, they look at the logical framework, because they have, like, in 2 sheets, all the summary of the project with all the information, which is mostly what we are talking about. Okay. Another important issue that most of the time is required is the sustainability of the project. What does it mean? That the project starts and then ends. What happens after, if you after the grant is over, after the termination of the action that for which you receive the money? So you need to have a strategy of sustainability, which means imagine how do you go on after the termination of the project. This is very important, because on the sustainability, usually it's a very important point coming to the evaluation of a project, because the European Commission likes to support projects that don't die after the termination of the grant. So this is also something to think about when you design a project. So how to apply? Now everything is online. So all the application, all the process of submission are online. So the first step that you need to do is to register in the ECAS portal. ECAS portal is like a kind of entry door of all the services that European Commission provide. So in that case, you have this EU login. You have to create a profile. This is the really first step before to do everything. So you create a profile, and then when you have a profile, you can access to the web form. And then now maybe we can have a look to a web form. For example, we have talked about, these are all the call for proposals that are open now related to the Erasmus+. So we talk about the youth participation, for example, is that one. You can go, you see, I told you before that the deadline is the 23rd of February. You go to apply. Okay, so this is the web form of the youth participation call for proposal. As you can see, you have like participating organizations, where you have to list all the organization. Each organization, when you register your profile in the ECAS login.
Caterina, sorry, I don't know if it's me, but I still see the slide.
Yeah, just one.
So maybe it's,
okay.
There's something else probably before.
Sharing of the screen.
Okay. Can you see it now? Yes?
Sì. Sì.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when you register in the ECAS profile, you have to register also your organization. Your organization will be attributed a code, a number. So every time that you digit this number, recall all the information of the organization without that you have to type it again. So it's important, the registration for that. So here you have project rationale, aims, objectives, and then all the description, target groups, expected impact. And then here we have activity and so on. So these are the web form. All the projects now are presented and submitted through this kind of web form. Okay. Another interesting resources which goes beyond the Erasmus Plus program is the tender portals. The finding and tender opportunities. It's a portal of the European Commission which includes all the call for proposal with all the program. Okay, so you can find here. Can you see it now? No.
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 Okay, again. Okay, now you can see it, no?
Yes.
Okay, so this portal includes all the call for proposal from the different European Commission programs. So you can find here all the Erasmus Plus call for proposal, but also the proposal of everything from other DG, Directorate General of the European Commission, so other program like the DG Justice, DG Development, so all the call for proposal, call for tender of the European Union. This is the main gate for accessing all the funding opportunities. Okay, I would like to hear, because I think it's much better if you have question about this, because being very large topic, maybe it's better if you address very specific question concerning what we have talked. So if you have question, we can go in depth of some issues.
We have actually just one question.
Okay.
About Abubakar. He's saying that I am a migrant, an international protection holder, and also a university student. I have always wanted to encourage fellow migrants to further their education. However, this could not be achieved without a proper project. With this ambition, is it possible to set out a project and get funding?
A project for improving the access to education of migrants, I understood well.
Probably he mean that, but if it's online, we can, yeah, we can raise the hand.
Yeah, if he wants to explain, I mean, to step in. We
Abubakar are saying that yes, this mean in the education of migrants.
Yes, you can. I mean, in the kind of project, for example, that we are talking in the year project of right protection, access to justice. Let's say, no, it's the focus of our project. But you can also write a project on access to education. So, like building an action that facilitates in terms of information. Of course, you cannot finance directly the education program of one person, one or more person, but you can like build a project that creates the infrastructure for facilitating the access to education. It's like a little bit, we work on access to justice in this project, but you can like motivate it and building a project talking about access to education. You can give all the information to migrants and facilitate also the bureaucratic procedures, everything they need for accessing education, like public education we are talking about mainly. So yes, you can do that, but it's more a facilitation process. Of course, you cannot pay education for people because this is not allowed. It's not allowed. There is the mobility, the Erasmus. I think that everyone knows the Erasmus program because originally was the mobility for student program. But of course, this is already reserved for university students. So if you are not in the system, you cannot apply for a mobility, a student's mobility. So if the project is like how to facilitate migrants to access, yes, you can do that.
And I think that maybe I don't know, that's I add this question to the one of Abubakar. Maybe it's possible to pay for scholarships in the framework of a project which aims to, like, I don't know, facilitate, foster the access to education of, I mean, people with migratory background. I don't know, that's maybe you can find a scheme, let's say, to support with a direct contribution or something.
Scholarships are field of universities. Of course, in the universities call for proposals. There are scholarships for scholars, also for students. But we are mostly when we talk about civil society, we are mostly talk about informal education, not formal education. So we are not talking about scholarship, but there are several other tools, like, for example, the European Solidarity Corps is another program that incorporates like the voluntary service, which is an opportunity of the education, of informal education, because you can learn like directly on the field with the association or with other entities, because European Voluntary Service, which is the old name and now European Voluntary Course, is not used only by organization. They are used also by institutions sometimes. So you can like doing a kind of learning by doing experience. Another opportunities are job shadowing. In the framework of the mobility program that Erasmus Plus offers, there are the opportunity of submitting project that includes job shadowing, which means that you go to work to another organization, for example, to learn how to do it or to learn what they are doing for 1 month or 2 months. So it's a kind of the field of informal education is more practical than theoretical. And there are in the Erasmus Plus several opportunities. I approached only 2 call for proposal because I thought that it was useful to focus on the most easiest one to access, taking for granted that the audience of this session are people that are not familiar or they didn't have any project before. So it's like if you want to really start. But if you have already an organization that is already set up, there are many opportunities in the field of youth participation, youth exchanges, trainer for trainers. There are several opportunities. And scholarship are mostly related to the university, to the formal university system.
Okay.
Have Nicole Olsen. Okay.
Shall we? Okay. Can you allow her to talk, Agnesa?
Yeah, sure. Why I can't? Yeah. Nicole, can you hear us?
Yes, you can hear me?
Yes, sure.
Perfect. So yes, I have a question. It's regarding the youth participation projects that you talk about, informal groups that not necessarily are registered as an organization. So my question will be, are these people that we are part of the group, do we need to be on a range of age? Because Erasmus has like this aim to you know, like to foster projects that for young people. So do we need to be between the 19 or 30 years old?
Yeah, under 30. But to present the project doesn't mean that the target group of the project must be under 30. You know what I mean? the group that proposed the project must be under 30, but the object of your project can be whatever.
Okay, and the second question is like, do these persons who conform the group should be also citizens of like the European Union, or do like at least me, I live here, I have a resident permit to live here in one European country, but I'm not like originally born in this country. I do not hold a European passport.
Must be resident. Must be resident, so even though they don't have the European, the European citizenship, they can apply without problems. They must be residents in one of the European countries. Okay. And of course, this is very encouraged, because if in the groups that propose the project, we include in the design, in the management, in all the activities from the beginning, people with migrant background, it's something that is very appreciable.
Yeah, I just mean, like, for instance, in these like forms, or when you are applying for funds, sometimes it's like very hard if there is a person that has no like a passport, or is like in a process of like undocumented situation, then it's really hard to those people to actually be the ones who are in the project's management. Yeah. You know, like you will need to have like someone with a passport or a resident permit of the country to be able to get the funding. For instance, to, I don't know, I imagine that you get the funding in a bank account, that should be someone that is like citizen in a country.
Yeah, of course, maybe the person, normally when you apply as an informal group, there is one person that is like the coordinator, and this person must have the bank account at least. But all the other components, or all the other members of the group can also be without bank account and without permits. For example, I give an example that we did a small project with DIFRO, which was like a European Solidarity Corp project. There is this is another small opportunity, very, very flexible. Solidarity projects. You can apply for small amounts, like 6 up to 10,000 Europe for financing local projects. And we supported a web radio made by migrants, and all of them didn't have like a long-term permit. So we applied as organization, but the real proponents, the 5 people that were mentioned officially that were proposing the project, there were 3 of them. They were migrants without permission. So there are different ways of doing that, but it's possible.
Yeah, if I remember well, they were holding like asylum seekers or humanitarian protection permits. So basically temporary residence permit. They were, I mean, they got, I mean, at the time they had an authorization to stay, of course, yeah. But at the same time, they were not like long resident.
Yeah, but in this case, like, for example, for this kind of project, there is no check. I mean, they didn't ask you for this documentation. You know what I mean? It's I think it's for my experience, if we manage to involve those kind of target groups, those kind of people, it's really a plus in the project, and it's really well seen, and you take more consideration. Your project takes more consideration, because it's difficult to do it, and there are very few projects that involves migrants since the beginning. Most of the time, migrants are the target of the action, but it's the same in the organization, at least in Italy. I don't know, maybe in other countries it's a little bit different, but in Italy it's very difficult to have migrants which work in the organization, which are focused on migration, which is like a contradiction, but at the moment it's like that, at least in Italy. And it's an effort that organizations, civil society is trying to do it, reflecting about that. And also those projects can be useful for approaching these issues and try to involve them in the civil society environment.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. And Caterina, you would like to continue with the presentation, and we'll take the guest.
We have 5 minutes, then we have a break, so I can take another question. If there is another question.
Okay, perfect. So Rictus Frank have 2 questions actually. He said, can an organization apply for a tender to acquire computer hardware to run their organization? And the second one is there a possibility for organization, non-profit, located in the northern part of Cyprus to participate to Erasmus+?
Yes. Yes to both questions.
Okay.
When we come to flat rate lump sums, if you specify that you need the equipment and you really well justify why you need this equipment, because this equipment is fundamental for the implementation of the action, you can include it. Of course, must be reasonable. Cannot be a project that only for buying equipment. It's you have to implement one activity, and for this activity you need 1 computer or 2 computers. You can include them in the budget. For the northern part of Cyprus, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Rick, also for the question. We doesn't have any question right now, but we can go with the break and we can start in 10 minutes, starting from now, like 7:05 and 7:10 minutes. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So in the second part, we will have Carmen that will talk about fund action, which is a foundation where the decision-making process about which project, which organization to finance are made by the activists themselves. So it's very interesting. It's a new generation of foundation.
Okay, perfect. We'll wait for Carmen Dupont next. And okay, let's catch up in 10 minutes. Thank you, Caterina.
No.
Okay, I think that we doesn't have necessarily to make a presentation for you because all our participants know you already. So we can start with your presentation about the project.
Great. So I'll go ahead. Thank you for having me again. I promise I won't come back again after this. You won't have to see me again next week. So yes, today I'm going to briefly talk a bit about fund action. Fund action is a network, an interesting one, a hybrid kind of between a network of grassroots activists, but also a grant maker, a funding network. And I think for me, that combination also made it personally very interesting. That's why I also really wanted to join some years ago. I joined back in 2018 by now as an activist member. So basically, to kind of describe it in a brief way, the whole origin why fund action came about was, which I think some of you will recognize or hear about, the fact that as activists working in this space, in different struggles, we spend a lot of our time finding money to do what we want to do. While basically it would be great if we could just spend all of this time on the struggle itself and not on finding money and funding. Combined with the fact that funders in general, like the whole world of philanthropy, they really like a lot of processes and procedures. They like to make their application processes really long. And then there's also complicated reporting that they require. But also, and I think that's the most important part, what many activists experienced and why fund action was started in the first place was that they really struggled to find funders who just wanted to fund what they felt was needed. So often, you know, let's say you have a project and you're doing a certain kind of work, especially if you're doing like more political work, advocacy work, which is more, you know, difficult to kind of put in pictures and so on. You usually really struggle to just present it to funders like that and just to say, look, we are here as activists on the ground, communities on the ground, we know what's needed, this is what needs to be done. But funders will come back to you and say, no, but that's not our agenda. Our project is actually really specifically this. And you have to mold your approach to what the funders want. And that, according to us and the whole fund action project, is the world upside down. And this really needs to change. So we often say that we don't fund what funders want, we fund what activists need, what communities need on the ground. So we refuse to like adapt ourselves and then do projects that are not really useful just because the funder thinks that it's useful, decided, you know, in some office somewhere far away from the realities of what's happening. So that's the reason why fund action came about. So there was a meeting by now, that's 6 years ago, of some progressive funders and foundations who also invited movement representatives and grassroots activists, and not as part of the formal agenda, but in the corridors, basically, and over dinners and drinks, they started to talk about this issue, that this was a real challenge and a real problem. And then some of them decided, you know what, we're going to stop talking about it. We're just going to create our own vehicle to do funding in a totally different way. Let's just prove that it can be done in a totally different way. And the result of that is fund action. So basically the whole, how we are set up, it's totally decided by activists. So we designed as activists the whole funding vehicle that is fund action. And how we work is that we are totally fully democratic and horizontal in all our decision making. So basically we launch several grant rounds for our members every year. And then members can apply. And how do you apply? We have an online platform that is also open source and everything, where you put your application form, you fill out some questions, and it's super fast and super easy. So we have like 5 questions. We try to keep it as light as possible. So we have a grant round open right now, actually, to give you an example. So we now have 22 projects that are up in the application process. So 22 members put up a project, and we can give out grants to 6 of them. So we have 6 grants of 20,000. So now we are in the phase where people can comment. So we put everything on the platform, then we have a commenting phase. So everybody, all the members, all the activists, they can look at the projects that are up, and they can write a comment underneath. For example, they can say, oh, great that you're doing this project with migrants in Greece. We tried this housing project in Serbia. Be careful because these are the pitfalls. We tried this doesn't work. Do you want to talk? Should we collaborate? So the whole idea, which is also really powerful, is that we also really want to replace the model of competition that really now is very fierce between all of us, right? Like most of us, we all apply for the same funding all the time. So we are always in competition with each other, which also doesn't make sense. And we don't want to be, because in the reality on the ground, we often work to get together, but we compete for funding because there's limited funding. So the whole idea is that we replace this model by a platform for collaboration and exchange, where you can actually see similar projects and say, okay, let's try to maybe do something together and all of this. And then after the commenting phase, people can vote. So everybody has 5 votes. You put your votes on the projects, and then kind of the short-listed projects, in this case, in this grant round, like the first 12 of the 22, they will go to a peer-to-peer panel. So we also select, like randomly, people from the community. They go into this panel, and then they kind of interview, they have a conversation with the shortlisted candidates, and then they might make the final decisions. So this is how we do our grant making, but this is also like this way of doing, like trying to do everything really in a fully participatory way. That's also how we run everything. That's how we run the platform. That's how we make decisions about all kinds of things. For example, now we are in a big transition from being an informal network. So we have been informal for 6 years now, which meant that we were not registered as a foundation or something, because we were still in this pilot phase. So we had a fiscal sponsor, we had a bank account in some other organization. And now we are setting all of this up ourselves. So we are registering as a foundation in the Netherlands. We're setting up a bank account. It's all very interesting, as you can imagine, very fun, all of these bureaucratic things. But it also means that all of this we decide together as a collective, as a community, like how will we do the transition? How do we make sure that we don't lose this collective decision making? All of these things we talk about, we discuss, we put proposals on the platform. So everything is fully participatory. So basically the whole thing that we really are proving already for the last 6 years is that, yeah, it doesn't have to be this way, that kind of the funders hold all of this decision-making power over where the funding goes. Like, we believe that funding should really be based on trust and on, you know, who knows best what needs to be done. And those are always the communities on the ground and the activists that are really embedded in the reality, and they know what's needed, and we don't feel that funders need to impose their agenda there. So that's it in short, I think.
Okay, I shared the website.
Thank you.
I don't know if Katerina wants to say something else, or
No, not really, but if there are other questions that me or Carmen can address, you are welcome.
Maybe something, if I can, that I forgot. Maybe I should add, if people are interested in fund action and also maybe becoming a member, that we are in a phase of kind of changing how we go about membership. So we're going to open up the membership more in the next months. So if people are specifically interested at this point, it's best to send us an email to our inbox, general email address that you will find on the website, because we're doing some testing in these next months. But then the idea, because our website is quite new now, is to launch from our website with a web form from autumn onwards, also like open calls for applications and for new people to join, because you have to be a member in order to apply for grants through Fund Action, because it's important that we build this community that is active and involved. So that's the reason for that.
Maybe I just want to say thank you, Carmen, for participating to this session. And it's really interesting, because before we were talking about Erasmus Plus program, and how I started to say, I started the session saying that you have to negotiate your objectives with the objectives and the priorities of the program. And this is very interesting what Carmen was saying, and the experience of Fund Action, because you don't have to do that. Basically, you can go straight forward to your objectives and being like clear on what you want to do. And when we are talking about when we go to European project, of course, you always have this negotiation with yourself that you have to negotiate your objectives with the priorities of the program. Sometimes they fit, because they're in some cases fits well, because it's true that there are some priorities that are so general that you can go inside, but sometimes not, especially when you go to the political work. What Carmen was saying, when you go to advocacy, transforming processes and advocacy, political work, it's more difficult to find like European funding for that.
Yeah, no, and that's also something that I didn't really emphasize, but in order to be a member, like everybody who's part of this community works on systemic change, on really deeply transforming things. So we don't fund charity, because that's exactly, where the gap is, that the reality is that a lot of grassroots activists who do like the more political work and the organizing, it's those people and projects and communities that find it difficult, to find funding. And I would even go a step further in that, we don't adjust, so people don't have to adjust their projects to a funder, but it's also really like we openly refuse it, and we advocate very much in philanthropy circles as well, that really this is not okay and it shouldn't be like that. So it's also really, it's the struggle in itself, of what we do. So we spend a lot of time in like funding circles and going to these conferences and meetings and discussions, and really challenge them on how they distribute funding and the power that they hold, which we believe, it's definitely too much and distorted, and it's not how things should go.
Another issue. It's also the bureaucratic burden of which is something really time consuming. Like when you have to manage a project, it's really the bureaucracy. You have to make a lot of reporting, financial reporting. It's not the case of the call for proposal that we have talked before, because I picked up two, of course, small in terms of financial allocation, but easy to do for grassroots groups in the Erasmus Plus program. But usually a European project is really time consuming in terms of reporting, financial reporting, auditing, and this you spend half of the time doing that, and you don't have the time to do like the political work or the activities. So I think it's very very good to have this kind of experiences like foundation that are really grassroots oriented and radical oriented. Also for that, because you can like present what you want to do with a very light, backpack of bureaucracy.
Okay, I don't know if there are other questions from you guys. If someone wants to, okay, because okay, no, Lauren was asking to be added to the WhatsApp group. That's something that we cannot do. Okay, I don't know if there's someone who wants to join the conversation, sharing, I don't know, some experience or making some questions to our friends and colleagues. Otherwise, we can close it here. And okay, yes, I think maybe there's a question. No. Okay. So I thank you again for joining us. It was, I think, very interesting, and with the participants, we will meet tomorrow for the last lesson of the first module. So please share this information also with the others who weren't with us today. And okay, that's it. Thank you, Caterina. Thank you, Carmen. And of course, thank you, Agnesa and Chiara for the support.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you, Caterina. Thank you, Carmen. Also.
Bye. Ciao.
Good evening. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.